The first time I went to Dahlem, I was not so long ago in Berlin. And suddenly, one of my friends told me that, you should go there. You should have a look at this museum. So I entered, and I was amazed. I was surprised. I was shocked at the same time.
This museum has a large collection of cultural objects, of art objects, of everyday objects from many parts of Africa, but particularly from Cameroon. And we're standing now in a display called Art of Africa, which is an attempt to discuss the different kinds of artistic traditions in Africa.
This is very symbolic because you have a kind of window, a glass, a piece. You have something that is separating you from what you see, and what is this separation, this kind of transparent wall that has been pulled up between you and yourself, because these are a reflection of ourselves collectively. It has not been done by us. You have just a very limited percentage of anything that is kept that is actually showed to the public. And when you go to the basements, you will even be denied to have access to the knowledge that actually a part of your heritage. So that is, a structural deficit of any museum.
One of the accusations that's often leveled against museums is that we don't put enough objects on display. And I think one of the things that one has to think about as a museum is what stories do we want to tell, what stories can we tell, what stories can we ethically tell, what stories are uncomfortable for us to tell, and to try and be as honest as we can and transparent as we can about those things. If someone wants to come and see a particular object here, whether it's on display or in storage, they can always write to us. And if the object can be taken out and safely brought out, we will do that. This is Manduyenu. It's a throne from the Bamum Kingdom in Western Cameroon. It probably is the oldest one of the different Manduyenu thrones that exist today. It's, I think, pretty clear that King Joya, when he gave the throne to the German governor for William II, the German emperor, that it was a gesture that was meant to signify his own greatness as a king, that King Joya was himself great and powerful, and not just a gesture that was meant to be seen as something of submission, but it was a kind of gesture that shows your own greatness when you're able to give a very great or important object.
It was definitely not a kind of a present that you give to someone when they're passing by. It's a symbol. It's a symbol of royalty. It's a symbol of dignity. It's a symbol of sovereignty. So it has nothing to do in the middle of the museum.
What I know about the thrones, that he was, like pressurized and put under pressure for years to give up his throne. So I would ask, is this really a present? Should we talk about a present, or shouldn't we at least offer to return it?
Ask us. Ask us whether really the attribute of our sovereignty, the attribute of royalty, the attribute of our own people, we would just give them like this as a gift. What do you want to give us in exchange of that? There's nothing you can give in exchange of sovereignty, in exchange of dignity, in exchange even of memory or ancestry. Nothing. Or do you think of anything?
What the Germans gave King Joy in exchange was a mechanical musical instrument, an orchestrion, that quickly broke down. And there are a number of different traditions which say that King Joy joked that it would have been better if he'd asked for a stud farm, a horse farm in Brandenburg, rather than just any old gift. I think there are some objects that are rightfully here. I think when you talk about things that were intended to be given as gifts, even complicated gifts, I think it is right that they're here. Other objects, I think it's less right that they're here, but I think the vast majority of things are probably rightfully here, yeah.
You or we all here in Berlin, we have a problem because they were acquired during colonialism. But this is where the museums are very cautious, because they say, okay, there might be some circumstances in some cases where objects were taken away by force or something. But they would, and of course you see why they can hardly, say colonialism as such was, an unlawful thing.
Many museums are grappling now with how to think about the colonial era as an era in which objects were taken from their original contexts, or given from their original contexts, or purchased from their original contexts and came to museums in Germany. And it's something that museums are struggling with. We're trying to understand the history of how the things came here in order to better understand what it is that we can do with them. I think in some cases we have to ask ourselves the question, should an object be displayed? Should an object be held by a museum? Should an object be repatriated?
Systematic research has to be led in order to assert the origin of all these items, and structures have to be set up in order for the countries of origin to be, including Cameroon, to be able to welcome them back. If there's any research on us, it should be with us, and it should be with our permission.
When I approached the question of what I wanted to see as the basis for an exhibition in the Humboldt Forum about Cameroon, I thought very clearly that what needed to be in the center of that was the question of how the collections came to Germany and the question of colonial rule in Cameroon.
The Humboldt Forum, which is the palace of the former kings being colonial rulers here in Berlin. So you've got an imperial palace, and what you have decided now is to put in all the objects these emperors have ordered to be brought here. And you've got a very post-colonial, neo-colonial project now.
I think, it would be a mistake to try and get rid of this collection collectively. And I think keeping pieces from this collection, even difficult pieces from this collection here, is a constant call to try and deal with the complexity of the history of colonialism and Germany's part in it. And that to me is very important.
This is true, this is part of German history, but it is also part of African history, of the different countries in all the world. So it's part of an entangled and for shared history. So we should find a way to tackle this in a joint way, to have a dialogue on them, and maybe to have curators from the countries here, or maybe from the diaspora living here in Berlin. I mean, you don't have to go to Cameroon to get a specialist on these objects. You find them here in Germany and Europe as well, Cameroonians living here. So then you might find a way to present them in a different way, or maybe return some of them. Germany could return every month one object, and we could do this for the next 500 years and make everybody happy. So this is even how I could, the Humboldt Forum as well, I could imagine it as well to work, like an entry to, or a gate for return.